Is there any unexplored land left on this earth
that's never been seen by a human being?
Our guest tonight, it's time for
My brother's brother.
My brother's brother.
My brother's brother.
It's time.
My brother's brother.
I think it's quite the study.
Look it up.
Hello and welcome to My Brother's Brother. I am my brother's brother, Daren, and this is my brother, Ryan. Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's good.
Hey.
So those of you who are listening to this audio only, Ryan is in the nicest fit right now. He's got a NASA, that looks official. I don't know if you could get any more official than that. A NASA jacket, hoodie, and a hat. And he looks good. I know you're wearing that. Yeah, you're wearing that ironically.
Yeah.
Ironically, yeah.
Yes. But it's a full suit. It's a full suit.
Does it go down to the pants?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did not expect that at all.
Full suit, baby.
Okay, good. So welcome to the first episode of My Brother's Brother. Like I said at the beginning, I am Daren. This is Ryan. We are brothers. We kind of go down two different paths in life, and now we found ourselves back in the middle here where we are doing a show. We did a show, I don't know how long ago that was, 10 years ago or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Over 10 years ago?
At least.
Where we talked about just all the things that are possible in terms of alternative thinking, questioning the narrative, questioning the story that we've all been told, and that can go in so many different directions, which we'll attempt to go down all of them at some point through the course of this series. But I think it's most pressing to start with one of the biggest ones, which is one of, I think, the most divisive, and honestly one of the ones that, to me, in terms of like when we were growing up, I never heard of the flat earth theory. It wasn't almost until the internet was invented that it got out to everybody. Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, I think it got out to the masses in modern day with the internet, but I think flat earth has always been around, and we started with a flat earth. People believed the earth was flat from the beginning. You know, everyone thought Columbus was going to go over the edge. That was a thought pattern that's it's true today, but not in the way that they thought. It's not a disk in space with water falling off the edges like they show on the internet through images. It's not that at all. I think we talked about it last time. It's more of like I say, picture a piece of Swiss cheese with lakes throughout. Each hole is a different lake. The cheese is actually the ice wall that keeps all that water within itself, and the continents are inside of it.
I can imagine that because I remember we did an episode on my podcast, but when you brought that up to me, I hadn't heard that before. And then I got a little bit of feedback from people that I was talking to about the show, and they were like, oh, I'd never heard of that. And so I think that's a very good visual analogy, a piece of Swiss cheese. And so if you're looking down at that, you have various holes, maybe potentially of varying sizes, much like Swiss cheese, that are these self-contained domes of civilization. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as ours is concerned, there's they believe there's a dome or a firmament over it, and then, what's beyond the ice wall in those other lakes, it's just a theory. We don't really know. I mean, we have the Admiral Byrd story, so, it's a best guess situation, but no one really knows what's beyond the ice wall. We can't go there. It's blocked off. There's a treaty. You're not even allowed to go there if you're a millionaire and you want to do a journey on your own. People have been turned away. There's warships. It's totally off limits to anybody.
So it is manned. It's guarded.
Yeah, Antarctica is what we're talking about. So, and then I'd also want to talk about is like that when we say flat, I don't mean like as thin as a piece of Swiss cheese. The thickness, we don't know. We don't know what's underneath. Like everyone has all these questions, but no one knows everything. We just know it's flat. But what's underneath, how thick it is, of course we have mountains. It's not completely like a thin piece of rock that you can punch a hole through and go through space, because I don't think space is real either, to be honest with you.
We'll get there. Slow down. I think once you start kind of poking at this idea, the questions obviously just are numerable and keep coming. And so for what the theory that us, as you so kindly put it, globetards, which I would identify myself as one, a globetard, we have that all figured out for the most part. It's a globe and it's floating in space. And I know even just saying it and making it that basic makes it sound stupid. But so even if we could theorize, okay, so we're zooming out on the piece of Swiss cheese. Is that in the way that I can zoom out from my globe and know that it's an infinite amount of space? What is like an infinite amount of Swiss cheese? I mean, it becomes like difficult to imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, of course it is. All of it's difficult. I mean, I don't have an exact answer as to what's beyond that. It could possibly be water above the dome. That, you know, where that water leads, who knows? I don't think anyone really knows the modern day story. You know, come on. Don't you think it's a little ridiculous? Like that, you know, things are light. The sun's 93 million light years away, or whatever. It's 93 million miles away. I mean, it just seems so much closer. It seems local. I mean, when you use your own, you know, your own judgment and your own senses, it just what they're telling you doesn't make sense. I mean, just think about things like the stories they're telling us. It just seems to me ridiculous. I mean, in my own
but just
eyes.
to take an arbitrary number like 93 million miles and say that seems too far, that's just making it easier for you to say if it's not 93 million. If somebody said if it's 40 million, would that make any better for you, or does it just feel like it's because you're in and you speak in we terms, which is interesting. You say like we believe this, which I'm assuming is the flat Earth community, which I don't think is any sort of thing that's unified or unionized or anything that like has a real structure to it. But to say like you believe that it's local, right? I mean, that's the difference between it being 93 million miles away and local. So what's locally? So you're saying it must be much closer.
Yes. I think personally it's much closer. You know, I mean, the moon and the sun. I think they rotate in a circular pattern. If you look at the disk, and you know how the seasons and the winters and summers come, it's, you know, as the sun gets closer and spirals out, winter. As it gets further away, it's winter. As it gets closer in, it's summer. It's really.
But that's the same thing that happens in the globe-tard theory.
Oh yeah. No, a lot of the things you don't have to say globe-tard either. You can just say globe theory.
Good,
but a lot of the things you can explain equally on both sides. That's the difficult part. Like you can account for anomalies on the flat Earth model as well as the globe model. You know, so I mean, to back up a little bit, you know, we're going hard in the paint right off the get-go. I think we need to start with, do you believe we landed on the moon?
Oh,
that's. I mean, no, but you really have to. You really got to start there, because that's where the lie begins. I mean, if you want to start where the lie begins and when we discovered that the Earth was flat in modern times, it begins with NASA. I think they found something. I think they know something we don't. I don't think they went to space. I don't think they went to the moon. I think they realized we can't get there. They made up a story. They fabricated it. There's tons of evidence behind that. I mean, come on, do we really believe that? Back then they had a live feed from the moon. We could barely get FaceTime to work half the time, or our computers to work these days. And that's like we're in close proximity with modern day tech. But dude's calling the president from the moon live?
I don't think he called the president, did he?
I think he did.
Allegedly? Okay.
Yes, there's just too much going on there. And when you look at that, I'm curious, do you believe that we landed on the moon?
Well, the last time we talked, and you know, I've had a lot to think about, as well as 300 some odd of people who have listened to the other episode have texted me and said, man, give a lot to think about for sure. My stance has always been that, and I say it with less conviction than I even did the last time we talked, is that I'd like to believe that we did, just for the simple comfort of knowing that we haven't been lied to and been, you know, deceived all these years. We made it, but the technology, the video technology and the audio technology wasn't up to snuff, and so that's the thing that we fabricated. And that is just more of like yes, we got lied to in order to propagate this patriotic campaign, but to fabricate the whole thing, yeah. And no, I'm not even sticking to that anymore, honestly.
So what do you mean? What do you stick? What do you?
Well,
I mean,
I'm much more on the side of believing that we didn't go, or that we didn't.
Really?
Didn't go.
Really?
But I'm not going to. I'll say that it doesn't parlay into the flat Earth and say we didn't go because there's a firmament. I would be more apt to say that we didn't go because it's extremely difficult.
Okay, I can get down with that. But you know, the point I'm trying to make here is if they can get away with a lie the size of that up until modern times, what else are we being lied to about? I mean, come on, that's a huge one. You know, I mean, it's 7 billion people on
again, the implication, and I know you always kind of bring up something like the Manhattan Project or these kind of compartmentalized projects that get so separated that nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody has all the answers, that it's so compartmentalized. But the grand global agreement that all the countries would have to agree on, that's where it starts to just go like, I feel like there would be in the USSR, or I guess Russia and China, that they would be interested in saying, you fucking lied, you guys didn't make it, and exposing that. Or does it feel like it plays more into like the powers that be, as much as they seem like they're in odds with each other, they're actually more in working together and being like, yeah, we'll all propagate this lie together, and we'll all have our own space programs, and we'll all bilk billions of dollars from taxpayer money that will just keep these things going.
I couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have
I'm playing
said it
devil's
better.
advocate a lot more than I
No, that's really good. That's really good, because that's exactly where I was going to go with it. You can either beat them or join them. Use it as blackmail. Hey, we know you didn't go. We're going to use it to our advantage. Give us X amount of money. Or we're going to use it to, hey, look what the U.S. is doing, and they're getting a ton of money.
Yeah.
Let's us do the same thing. Have a fake space station. Have you seen, and you can, anybody listening can
look
YouTube it. Look it up. The Indian rocket launch from India. Dude, it looks like an 8-bit Nintendo game, and the editing is horrible. It looks like a Bollywood movie. It's so utterly ridiculous. You can't help yourself but laugh. And then they pan over to their space station where everyone's like, yeah, like it's this marvel that they're watching an 8-bit computer screen. They're not seeing nothing's going on.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And then you know.
To speak kind of closed-mindedly, and this is just a little digression, I would have never imagined that India had a space program. And that's probably just a racist thought right there. That's what that is.
It's kind of crazy. It's I don't think every country has major country has some sort of space program in quotes, because I don't think they're going anywhere. They're just
again, I think probably a lot of the things that we talk about on the show are going to be and it's so unfortunate, but are going to be capitalistically driven. And so if we always go like, well, why? Like, why would you do that? Follow the money. Follow the money always gets you to the right answer. And to say, I mean, it's now to me it's like, it's a pretty good fucking con. It's a pretty good con to be like, we need all this money. And we talked about it on the other show. You said on the show, you quoted $65 million a day that NASA gets. And I did a little fact checking, because I wanted to be like, well, let's see if Ryan's just not just throwing shit out here. It's actually $72 million a day, which is like, so insane. That is so insane.
Isn't it? I mean, a day. I mean, for what? To make Velcro? Like, what are we doing over here? Elon Musk just did this reverse rocket on a budget. What's NASA doing?
Yeah, okay. So I actually saw you posted that on Instagram, and I was curious what you were. I wasn't sure if you were posting it ironically, because then I followed the link, and I was like, oh, this is like supposed to be a legitimate celebration of the feat that was accomplished. So when you think that someone like him is coming in and doing, because he doesn't have the motivation. Or does he still have the financial motivation that now he's getting NASA to break off some of that sweet money to him?
Yeah, I think that's what's going on, and Elon's an anomaly. I really don't know how to take him. I think he knows what's going on. I think he knows we can't get anywhere, and again, I think it's money driven, and he's a tricky one. I don't know what to think of him, but I know he's not going anywhere. That thing's not going anywhere. It went up in the air and came back down. Big deal. Everyone's applauding. Oh, it's the greatest thing ever. Dude, come on. I thought the moon landing was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you something, because I like people to get them thinking. Don't you find it weird that there's no video footage of them building the International Space Station, the supposed station that's been up there? Where's the video footage of them putting the modules together? Wouldn't this be the greatest feat of mankind next to landing on the moon? We're putting a space station. They're living up in space. We have Russia, China. We have to haul up there. Why is there no, like... It looks like green screens with women with hairspray in their hair to mimic gravity. They have videos of like mice running through the frames, glasses of water. There's just so many weird things.
This is a look it up moment. We'll start. We'll put like
Sorry.
things in no, it's okay. You're doing great. Because Ryan will reference these things that he's sent me in the past, and sometimes I'm not in the mood, or sometimes I'm just not open-minded, and I'm like, I don't care, or like, no, fuck that, because it does. I think a part of it is like, it's a so what kind of thing. I'm just like, great, you Ryan have discovered and exposed all the secrets, and me, Darren, like, what am I going to do about it? I don't get as excited, I guess, in that idea of like, fucking busted, look at that, the mouse ran by or whatever. But just to go back to it, that's a look it up moment. So we'll pin that. So go online and look up. I'm sure it's a compilation of ridiculous fake things, and yeah, the ones you've sent me, I try to like, I can never remember if it's steel man or straw man, but I think a steel man, and say like, to try to find an answer, to not just be like, holy shit, you're right, and be, because the whole deck of cards or the whole house of cards will crumble if you believe that there is something happening, like out, when I look out the window, there's no one up there, or there's no satellites, or all this like stuff that we're told isn't true, is like a lot to take in.
I mean, why do astronauts, and I'm going to call them knots because they're not going anywhere, why do astronauts train in water? Wouldn't they replicate the conditions of space? We have the technology to do that, to lower the temperature to that of space, to get rid of the gravity, supposedly, or make it a zero vacuum. Why are the astronauts, everything is done, they build like mock space stations underwater in these giant pools. Everything's done underwater. Is it because there's water above the dome and they know it and they're getting ready to crack through the dome? Or is it because they're not going anywhere? I mean, it is a little weird that they're not.
Issue. There's not enough money.
Get the hell out of here!
$40 million a day.
Listen, the special forces train in the conditions that they're going to. They're going to train. If they're going to the desert, they're going to train in desert-like scenarios. It makes sense. Why? You're going to the most hostile area ever of all time. The minute your spacesuit cracks, you're dead, and they're training in a pool.
Yeah.
I mean, just use logical thinking. Yeah, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And then going back,
I bet there's a good argument for that one, because it's probably to mimic space is probably more difficult than you think. Because what do you got to create? A giant room that you've sucked all the air out of? Is that?
Yes.
That's complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get one on Temu, dude. Like, let's be realistic. They can do anything. They have unlimited budget spending. They're supposedly putting a guy on the moon in the 60s. How much did that cost? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's right in front of you. And going back to the videos to reference, you'll see all sorts of anomalies in these NASA videos. You'll see things like wire harnessing on the hips. You'll see things like water bubbles going through the screen as they're talking. You'll see people's hair clearly hairsprayed and not that of gravity because there's a cup of water next to them. I mean, I can go on and on and on. There was a video of a guy talking on the microphone. All of a sudden, the microphone drops. He picks it up real quick. I mean, it's like they're laughing in front of our face, Yeah,
I wonder that kind of like, because you and your community are probably the minority in the rest of us who believe it, aren't so quick to jump to conclusions or to look at that stuff and even care, really. I mean, that's a big part of it, I think, is the kind of just the apathetic nature of like, I'm going to take the truth as it's given to me, and never, if I hadn't met you and had never been on the internet, at no point would I probably draw my own conclusions to like, wait a second, I don't think this is all happening, because it's just been since, like you said, since we're kids, these kind of narratives and these ideas of how patriotic space is and the American flag on your arm and just all the narrative wrapped up around it, that we just don't as naturally come to these conclusions. And so that's why you're just, you're a fucking shit starter here.
Yeah, but don't you think that's done on purpose? Give us entertainment and sports, and we're in a prison planet, but the prison's so big we don't know it. At what point does the zoo get so big that the animals don't realize they're in a zoo? That's what we are. I mean, don't you want to know what's on the other side? I mean, shrink it in like the movie The Village from Shamalama Ding Dong. Mm-hmm. That movie, think about how that was done. You had a bunch of millionaires that became the quote-unquote elders. They raised children that never saw the outside of anything within the confines of a forest. They used scare tactics to keep them outside of going through the forest. Mm-hmm. They paid millions to stop airplanes from going overhead. And they created this narrative within this confines of this community that brought them back to the 1800s. Meanwhile, they're living in the modern times. They didn't know until they broke through. But what happened? I don't care. Spoiler alert. Because it's driving a point home. What happened? Their curiosity, they could not, even though they had everything provided from them, food, health care, they had nothing to worry about. The elders took care of them. Their curiosity got the best of them. Human beings are naturally curious. Don't you want to know naturally what's on the other side of the ice wall, what's beyond? Don't you want to know what's up there, possibly? It's 2024. Why are we not doing space tourism by now? I mean, why are we not? If it's so easy to do, and I mean, they put a guy on the moon in the 60s. 75 years later, we're not zipping up there ourselves because you can't do it, and we know it. And the lie is getting bigger and bigger, but it's starting to fall apart. It's It really is, and I just don't understand people. I know you say, "Oh, we got to go to work on Monday." We talked about this the last time. Life is bigger than the system we live in. They created the system. This is not how it has to be. It doesn't have to be about money and greed, and those are all the wrong things. That's why spiritually we're at the bottom of the dimensions. We're at the very bottom. We're never going to hit enlightenment. Maybe that's what's going on beyond the ice wall. Maybe we're in a prison planet and we're the worker bees in this dome area, and we're generating the money and the machines for the elites to go over to the other side, where maybe spirituality is the currency over there. Maybe they trade in kindness. Maybe you level up by being kind to your brother as a species. That's what we should be doing, and this is essentially, the entire world is based on so-called fossil fuels and paper money and gems and all these things, but it's not based on love and spirituality. That's what's going to take us to the next level. That's what's going to make us ascend to the next dimension, to
Do you
light
think that's
beings.
possible, though?
Yes, I do. I just think we need a great restart, like we talked about, and without a cataclysm of some sort, which I'm not wishing upon us, but I just think a restart's only going to happen from another mud flood or cataclysm, or a giant flood, or somehow we break through and go beyond the wall. Now, is that possible with a dome over us? I don't know. I really don't know, but we should be able to explore the continent of Antarctica. There's a lot of people that would like to. Why is it so cut off from everybody? What are they hiding there?
I just don't. I don't know. That's where I get into like these ideas of things being said with such confidence and authority. Where are you fact checking yourself in all of this? Like, where, like, you hear this stuff on the internet, but like, you don't know that you can't go to Antarctica tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
Uncle George went a couple months ago.
No. There has been people that have attempted to go, and you can go to Antarctica. They take you to a little section that's sectioned off for the public. You can take a couple pictures with some penguins. You can stand next to some stuff and get a couple pictures, and then you're on the boat and you're gone. If you try to venture off on your own, you're a millionaire. I believe Alex Jones was asked to put the money together because he was brought the flat earth theory to him, and he's like, that's ridiculous, as many things as he believes, and he didn't really want to get into the flat earth, and he was challenged to use his wealth to put together a team to go to Antarctica, and he accepted. He's like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And months later, I remember him saying, you were right. I face so many hurdles and obstacles that we can't put a crew to go together. Apparently there's warships along the coast, and they have it heavily guarded off. You say, how do you look into it? What are you looking into the internet? Well, there are some facts. There is a treaty that all the countries hold that has never been broken. Very weird, since all treaties have been broken, and there's very few things that every country agrees on, but yet all the major countries all agree on this treaty that we keep people away from Antarctica based on, the environment. Come on, that's ridiculous.
Penguins. Protect the penguins.
Yeah, the penguin, exactly. Well, that's what they say. And then, you can go back in time and look into the fact that the Nazis supposedly fled to Antarctica. A lot of them, a lot of the scientists went there and set up a base. That was one of the reasons they think Admiral Byrd was sent there. And then you look into the Admiral Byrd situation. They get 5,000 guys together, and the official story is something about, again, the environment. But there's 5,000 people going, and, he
Wait, what
comes
is that
back.
story? What is that one?
The Admiral Byrd story.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not too familiar with it.
He was an admiral in the Navy, right? It was the Navy, and he put together a fleet. I believe they were looking for... one of the stories was they were looking for Nazi scientists, and he put together a fleet of 5,000 people, and they headed towards Antarctica, and he was on a plane. He was flying on some sort of mission, and he happened to go over the ice wall, and upon him, and this is his words, not mine, again, look into it. You can look it up on YouTube. He does an interview on a Johnny Carson type show. I don't recall who the host is. It goes back in time, but it's his words, and I'm probably butchering them, but paraphrasing. He said he saw abundance of resources beyond these lands. There were luscious green, rolling rivers, and this is beyond Antarctica now. They're in Antarctica. They're going, through icebergs or whatever. There's a fleet of naval ships going. He gets on a plane and takes off. He's on some sort of mission, a scouting mission.
Well, you know what he did? He just went over Antarctica and ended up probably in Africa.
No way, no way. It's huge. They wouldn't have enough gas to do that on a plane. That the planes, I mean, realistically, they wouldn't have enough gas. But again, he says there was some sort of opening. They flew into it. Again, there were all these abundance of resources, and he actually stated specific resources. I think he said something like coal and plutonium, and I think he got into a lot of trouble for saying those things because he was so, and I'll use the word flabbergasted when he got back. He was so excited that I think back then in the day they didn't have like huge gag orders, or I don't think TV and radio was as big, and they didn't think it was going to get to as many people, so they weren't as worried, or they didn't put as much silence on these types of people like the Admiral. And again, pull up the YouTube interview. It's very interesting, and they were apparently, that was the official story didn't match his story. And what did he see? What was over there? Why did they have a fleet of 5,000 people? Then you look into Operation High Jump. That's what the if you want to look into it, that's what it's called, Operation High Jump. That was what he was part of. So they can give you more details if you type that in.
Yeah. Man, it's hard when there is just kind of limited amount of evidence where, again, in this kind of internet times where you can point to things that are these slam dunk smoking gun ideas that it often kind of just like, well, look at this video on YouTube, but don't you now just suddenly disbelieve all the narrative? And I still am kind of attached to the narrative because it does imply that everything is fake or everything has been manipulated, and it's just a uncomfortable place to be at sometimes, of just like, I don't want to feel like I'm lied to all the time. And the biggest one being that we don't live on a fucking round planet. It's insane.
Yeah, it's not insanity. It's insanity. Okay, but you can look at other situations at the time. Okay, we talked about 9/11. You don't think that's insane? You don't think it's insane that they conspired to fly planes into a building to kill thousands of people for their agenda? You don't think there was any evilness behind that? You think that was just as they said? A bunch of terrorists got on a plane, flew them in, their passports floated down from the fire. Look, we got them, but the black boxes were never found. The most, indestructible items on any plane. Passports are fine. Black boxes are gone. Yeah. I mean, you think the official story was...
I don't want to talk about 9/11. It's very disrespectful.
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. Sorry. No, and it's funny to like tie these kind of theories together and with the moon landing or something like 9/11, and then saying like, if this is possible, then this must be possible. And I'm willing to include something like 9/11 and the moon landing and Pearl Harbor, any of these false flag missions that ultimately will, and with I think 9/11 with time will get the truth out of that, and then it'll be so far past it will just be like our kids will be like, what are you talking about? What's that? What's New York? Because it'll be flooded by then because of the seas rising. But the idea of like tying the idea of these big grand conspiracies I'm okay with, but I think it's still just jumping. It's like a big leap from the moon landing to this astrological just just being like lied to about the Earth. I don't know. That's still a tough one for me. And if we do enough episodes, I'm sure that I'll eventually come around to it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, it's like I told you, there's a spiritual battle going on, and I think there's multiple reasons why, the big question is, well, why would they hide it? Why would they just tell us it's flat? What's the big deal? Well, for one, if they knew it was flat after the attempts to go to the moon, the Apollo projects and stuff, if they found out it was flat, and they had to tell everybody, society would crumble. Universities would be destroyed. Science would end. Science would be over. We'd go back to spiritualism and mysticism, and science would be dead at that point. Nobody would believe anything. It would destroy society. I really think that's one of the reasons why it's kept a secret. I think they know about it, and they're like, this is too dangerous. We can't release this information. It'll kill societies. And then the second reason is, are they hiding a creator? Is it easier to control people within a prison planet, not believing in a creator, killing their spirituality? I mean, you can see on some of the radical religious people, nothing would stop them from doing anything for their spiritual leader. You know what I mean? They'll even die, or commit suicide, all for their God. I'm not saying that's the answer, but I'm saying that's how powerful a creator could be and take over. And then, we're gonna start rebellion. And if we know if people are aware that God's real, the other things are not going to matter. The little things in life, like taxes and going to work. If everybody knows it for a fact, right now you have to have faith. But if they're concealing, if there's a huge document, and Alex Jones talks about it, and so does Bob Lazar. I think Bob Lazar talks about it even more, and he was privy to seeing what he says is a thick stack of papers that the CIA, NSA, and all these organizations in regard to religion and in regard to God, and they may know the truth behind it, and they don't want to expose that, so they keep us on this fake narrative. We're on a spinning ball and we're rotating around the sun. We're not rotating around the sun. We are the center of everything. Everything rotates around us. We are superior. The world, the planets and the stars, they rotate around us. We don't rotate around them. That's
so
what God said.
The idea of taking that, I know I got it wrong the last time we talked, but I think the heliocentric model is what we operate on, is that we are centering around the sun.
Yes.
So to have that narrative, that implies that we are more insignificant in this grand cosmos, and the idea of flat Earth puts the power back to the people and says we are it. We are all there is.
Yes. I mean, let me give you some things to think about here.
Please.
The Big Bang is ridiculous, okay? It goes against the laws of physics and thermodynamics as it is. What's the entropy? If you look up entropy, it's like dropping an egg. The egg will never go back. It's a law of thermodynamics. It'll never go back to a full egg. You can drop it 10 billion times. It's always going to just crack. Same thing with a glass. Yet the Big Bang, there's an explosion out of nothingness. There's nothingness, a void, an explosion, and then all of life is created, all of intelligence, all of consciousness, all of beauty, everything is just created from a single bang, and with no explanation behind it. That's not as crazy as saying that God exists. I think God is way more plausible than a Big Bang theory, and we already talked about the things that are just absolutely ridiculous with space itself. I mean, then you get into evolution, and they're saying that, from a single-cell organism, from some swamp, we rose to be these intelligent beings that we are today, talking and pondering life, and if the planet's flat, that all came from nothingness? That just came from a little tiny,
couldn't you
don't you think it's a little ridiculous?
Do I think it's ridiculous that the fact that we couldn't come up with a better story for how it all came to be?
Yes.
Yeah, honestly, the Big Bang to me is just the best we can do in terms of thinking in a how you can even imagine time. So to say before there was the Big Bang, well, we'll leave those pages blank because it's almost irrelevant, but we'll start the story at the Big Bang. It just immediately just makes my brain go like, well, I can't conceive of any of this at all. And I guess the thing is I don't know that having a God in this really makes more sense, because it has so many more implications beyond that. It's just like, okay, well, where is God? Is it a God that we believe in as a man? Where did he come from? None of it makes sense. So no theory has ever felt like that one feels closer to the truth.
No, but I think it's more likely that there's a creator. When you say God, put it in quotes, because I don't know what the God is either. Consciousness might be God. Maybe God's a superior alien race that created us, the Anunnaki. Somebody that's higher than us, another dimension, has ascended beyond us. They have the ability maybe to travel interdimensionally, or maybe it's a singular God, maybe it's multiple gods, but they're beyond us. I don't think it's I think, to me, in my eyes, that's more plausible than just coming up with these fake stories. Where are they getting this stuff from? How do they know a Big Bang happened? Where is this coming from? Math? Come on.
Math,
Get out of here. Stop it. Science changes every day. With every century, there's been another great mathematician or scientific figure that has been wrong. And then that one's wrong, and that's wrong. They're all best guesses.
Yeah.
Well,
it's still the same for you. It's the best guess. It could be argued. I just think that the argument or the debate or the even ponderance of any of this falls immediately out of our capacity to understand what time is. So we're thinking in a linear sense. I'm thinking in a linear sense, where I think keep going back, as far as you can go. The idea that either had a beginning point or didn't have a beginning point is so fucking mind-blowing to say, no, keep going. Like, what the fuck is that? So I think just already that's not the way to think about it. And so I don't know what it is. Where you talked about kind of the idea time isn't linear, or everything is happy. It's in a circle, whatever. It's some other shape than it is a straight line. So that's where I think we just got to get out of that model. And I don't know how to go from there with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the human perspective is very limited, and I don't think anybody knows anything in reality. I think everything is best guess. I mean, from the greatest minds on the planet down to the dumbest, I think everybody has a fair shot at guessing what's really going on and what the reality is. But I do think there are groups out there that have a better grasp and understanding on the ways of the world because they have the resources to investigate these things, and I do think that they have some answers and some crazy theories that may be true and we're not privy to, and we're digging in. The internet's digging into these things, and hopefully we can uncover a lot of these things.
Yeah. I just it's not to sound so cynical about it, but it ends up being. I mean, it's fun to do this, to talk to you about this sort of stuff, and I don't want to keep being like, well, still got to go to work on Monday morning. But the element of like, I guess it becomes just, it's a real, for me, it's still just like, it's such a novelty, fun thing to play with and to just have fun with, because again, I don't know that you and I or anyone in this lifetime is going to crack in, and unless it's some incomprehensible heavy dose of psychedelics that ends up bringing you to a space where you're given all the answers, we may not be able to even if somebody told us or it came to us, you'd be like, yeah, but I'm still running that through my monkey mind, my linear brain, and it just doesn't compute. And it's like, think about any other animal on the planet. No other animal is ever wondering this stuff, and they're getting by, and they're having children, and they're feeding themselves, and they're warring, and they're doing all the things that we do, but we just kind of got this weird extra thing that allows us to just wonder and be curious. And I think that's where it is fun, and I think that, at least for I think it seems like you've talked about it, where you're like, because, I'm going to just take this. You are a person who would maybe be pigeonholed into this idea that the ideas that you hold are crazy, and so that puts you into this place where I think that you are able to admit that it's fun to think about, and you're not like out there on a street corner with a sign or yelling at people on the internet. And sometimes you do that a little bit, but that's also just for fun. But it's just like, let's just have fun with this, right? I mean, because no one's figuring this out.
No,
maybe we're dead. Maybe when we're dead, we figure it out.
Yeah, and even that, there's a lot of studies on death with the government, and they've looked into it. But I agree with you; it is really all fun, and it's I don't get angry about this stuff or start yelling. What I'm trying to do is spark people's creative thinking and imagination, and break them out of this NPC culture where you're just marching along to the beat every day, and you're going to work and putting football on Sunday, and having a beer with the buddies is your highlight of the week. Let's start thinking outside the box, and just our thoughts alone can manifest, materialize actuality. It's like thought is powerful in itself. That's why they say prayer is powerful, right? I mean, you can manifest things. I mean, ideas start in the mind and then come to fruition. They materialize. Everything starts with an idea. So if enough people get interested in something, maybe we will break through the ice wall or the dome. Maybe if they said tomorrow, if they said tomorrow, okay, guys, listen, we're going to reveal the truth. There is another land beyond the ice wall. We have a path to get there. It's a land that doesn't have money. It's a land where you're going to have to work, but that means not at a factory. That means harvesting the wheat, or you're going to be taking care of the babies, or you're going to be, it's, a community. You have to put in what you get out. And all the rewards you're going to get are health. There's no sickness over here. Crime doesn't happen. Murder doesn't happen. We basically follow the 10 Commandments to a T because we have everything we need. We have abundance of resources. We're not using fossil fuels. We were using clean energy like we should have been from the beginning. Life is completely we've restarted here. It's humanity 2.0 over here in the other dome. Would you drop everything today to go over there? I mean, how many people do you think would do that? Or do you think people are so hooked? No, the internet's dead over there. There is none. There's probably not even electricity.
Well, I mean, it's something we've talked about before and I know it's just done in like a really good kind of, I almost said historical fiction, just fiction in general, but The Matrix being that like you're choosing, but even the difference in that story was this is like almost like the cruel irony of that story was the example they give to the guy when they're telling him, do you want to go over to the Matrix, or do you want to sit here and eat this fake steak? And he's like, I don't give a fuck. This steak tastes real enough, so I'll keep it. But the idea that most of us live in, we're not eating steak. We're not like where I'm like, oh no, I would never give this up. Where I have like a stack of IRS bills and I'm tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt and like all these things. And so I think that maybe it would be a bit of an appeal to some people. Like for me, yeah, I would take that the way you've just laid that out. I love the idea of like a community of contributing in a way that like there isn't this, we grew up in a time where there was a bit more community on the street and like people knew each other and there were neighbors and like everybody kind of seemed to be a bit more engaged. And I don't know, I'd like to blame the internet on everything, but it seems like there was just a time where we don't do that anymore. We're all cut off. And then you throw in like fucking COVID and that made people even more insular. And so we've gotten so far away from that I think that sounds like amazing. Just the idea of contributing resources and your individuality to build the group thing. Yeah, I would think that would be great. Yeah. Yeah,
and if you want to get a visual on what we're talking about, check out the movie The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio.
But
remember that movie?
Well, did it?
No, it didn't go good at the end, but but the get rid of the end. Just the end is okay. Check out everything.
They've tried, throughout history. There's been attempts at communes and things, and there's just a part of us that wouldn't be like taking us now and moving us to another thing where you'd have to like you said, reset humanity and reset it with ideals and morals and things that maybe we just don't possess. We're like taking this Daren and putting him in a thing. I'd probably be so annoyed at all the other community members for the guy chews too much or the other guy's not pulling his weight or, I don't know. Like, I think that it maybe doesn't work. Like, I think it is that hard reset you're talking about of just like, it just doesn't transfer. We got to just start the fuck over again.
Yeah, but maybe if we start all over and there's a couple of scenarios that I think about, maybe on those lands beyond our ice wall, maybe there's a species that has ascended and they're there to teach us and they're there to keep us in check. Maybe we get rid of all those emotions. Maybe spirituality gets rid of the negative emotions of hate and jealousy and anxiety, and we become enlightened because of what we're doing, and the overseers or the creators reward us with something. I think our brain is really limited because we make it limited. I just don't think we have a hive mentality. We're out to get each other. There's crime. It just seems like the powers that be love that. They love to divide and conquer. I think they create a lot of racism where it isn't. They create a lot of bigotry where it isn't. The media is responsible for that. They get people riled up. This football team versus, it's always against this Republican, this political party against this them versus us all the time instead of us just coming together. And I see it at every level. Whether it's sports teams or your local municipality or all the way up to the highest levels of government. Everybody's at odds. It's even with our own country. Wouldn't the two teams want to work together to make a better America? Like, it just seems like, why are the two teams fighting? You got to pick this side or this side. That's just a small example. Put that up to a grand scale. We're never going to evolve. We're never going to ascend as a species because we're always at odds. War is profitable. Why? For the almighty dollar. This system we have here, it's like you said, it's got to end. And I don't know what that's going to take, but we're sure as hell we ain't going to space and going to Mars and creating colonies. You can forget all that. I want to bring something up because it's on my mind. Please. Remember when Elon sent that bullshit Tesla into space with that dummy? And he goes, it looks so fake, it's almost real. Come on, you guys believe that?
Yeah, you got.
You think that's everybody?
I don't know. Like, yeah, I never thought about that twice. I don't think I've thought about it since it happened.
You thought that was real?
I didn't. I think I was like, oh, that seems like you're just putting garbage into space, and then I just moved on to the next thing. But so the idea that just that coming back to the idea of that just the bullshit nature of commercial propaganda and him getting to heighten the stocks of Tesla by doing some kind of publicity stunt like that.
Absolutely, yeah. You answer your own questions. That's exactly what it's about. I mean, come on. They're launching that. Aren't they concerned about all the space junk in the space, like you said? Well, they launched it beyond our orbit. Get out of here. With what? Remote control rockets? And then, That's another point. You know, they talk about these micrometeorites that are traveling at, you know, hundreds of miles an hour and speeds that can tear through an astronaut's jacket or a spacecraft. Yet the International Space Station's up there. I don't hear of any micrometeors hitting it. I don't hear any of satellites. What do they do with the satellites that aren't working anymore? They just sit up there and they kill it and they put another one up?
Apparently it's cluttered with satellites.
Okay, and it's just so the beginning of time with satellites, we just keep putting them up there with as much communications and all this stuff. They're just thousands and hundreds of thousands of satellites just whipping around at Mach speeds, at free fall rate. None of them ever land and fall into the ocean or in your backyard. Or occasionally you will find a satellite. Let me put you onto something. Okay, occasionally you will find a satellite in someone's backyard, and guess what it's attached to? A balloon. Let me give you another fact that that people can Google. Do you know that NASA is also the biggest buyer of guess what gas?
Helium.
You nailed it. Look into NASA and helium. Why are they buying so much damn helium?
To
put the satellites up. Put the satellites up.
I just think there would be more. I think that there would be more evidence of that. I think that we would.
Oh, there's a ton. There's a ton.
Oh, there is.
I mean, you got to remember, the internet's not like it is when we grew up. It's suppressed, right? I mean, we know that it's algorithms and AI running the internet. They're going to filter, you know, there's agendas behind Google and DuckDuckGo and all. It's not the internet that we grew up with, the Wild Wild West.
Funny. I am very very naive when I come to the fact that, like, I don't consider the fact that the internet is censored. Like, I never think that, and that's something I need to stop doing. Because, like, you're right. I mean, because I also contribute that to saying when you say like trying to find something on YouTube and being like, I can't find it because it's suppressed. I'm always just like, no, it's not. It's all out there and nobody cares. But I guess that's probably not true.
No, they admitted to it at the Senate hearing. They had a YouTube representative there, and she actually referenced the flat Earth. She said, you know, we're going to start now putting, what do they call it, fact-checking information. And she goes, if somebody puts in some sort of a dangerous theory, and I'll use the example of flat Earth, we're going to fact-check it and change the algorithm to put that at the bottom and suggest a more a fitting narrative, the globe Earth. So why are they pushing that? And let me ask you a question. There's no problem, there's no debate or any problems with a square Earth or a donut Earth. Why do they have such a problem with a flat Earth? Why do they suppress that? I mean, listen, at the beginning of the time when radio and TV were invented, the CIA took it over immediately. I mean, governments knew through propaganda. Before that, what was it? Leaflets that they dropped out of the air to spread misinformation. Okay, so they weaponized TV, media, and radio. Why wouldn't they weaponize the internet? I mean, it's the same thing with digital currency. They took that over. It used to be anonymous. Bitcoin's not anonymous anymore. The governments control it. They use cryptocurrency to see what you're buying. They can read what you bought through those blockchains.
That's a new one. I haven't heard that one.
Oh, come on! Anything that's digital is controlled. I mean, does Edward Snowden have to read it to you as a bedtime story? He basically told everybody what's going on. That's why he's living in Russia hiding. I mean, he let us all know. I mean, there's nothing hidden anymore. So you have to assume that it's all controlled opposition. They're going to push their agenda, whether it's Instagram or Facebook. We already know that Facebook, didn't Zuckerberg just admit to apologizing for swaying political parties?
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff happens. It gets exposed. There's some lame-ass apology. And the idea that there's enough distraction to keep us moving on to the next thing where these people, a small number of people get incensed and get upset. Like there's no action that ever gets taken, and I don't know what that action is. But then, like with Snowden, I mean, yeah, that was like crazy at the time, and everybody was like, then their eyes were open to something they never considered about metadata and all these ways that you're just exposed and being tracked and all that stuff. And by design, I'm very sure it was just like, hey, look at this over here. Like, look what fucking scandal, a celebrity, Kim Kardashian got come on her tits. Like,
Jesus.
No, well, that's extreme. That's true. I mean, I think she did get it on her tits.
Okay.
But that's what I mean is just like nobody cares. Like nobody cares enough to do anything about it. So like it's basically the government saying, yeah, we do that. What the fuck are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, but they feed us that Kim Kardashian bullshit. If TV was more positive and more enlightening and spiritual and education, if the school systems were more based on education and not indoctrination and propaganda, which we know they are. I mean, that's exactly what they are. You just go there to memorize what they tell you. They don't encourage creative thinking, so they start at a very young age. And like I said last time, what are the first two things they talk about? Dinosaurs and space, because they want to get you early. And if they keep perpetuating the lie through adulthood and everybody else believes the lie, when you become an adult and you're able to critically think on yourselves and you're able to research and look at these things, you sound crazy because everybody else is on a different page because they were all indoctrinated. So you're the guy in the room that's talking crazy because you're speaking outside of the norm. What gives you the right to speak and believe in your beliefs? Because you were told that by someone else, by an authority figure that has already lied to you on several layers. At what point do you stop believing them? I mean, our authority figures. I mean, we know that we talked about it. They lie about the foods we eat. They're poisoning us. Yeah. They lie about the things we drink. They're poisoning us. They lie about our medication. We're the only country in the world that can put as many pharmaceutical commercials on TV as they want. And
I think any commercials. Like every other country doesn't put commercials for that. Yeah.
Right. But they're poisoning us there through our healthcare system. They're poisoning us mentally through our school systems. They're poisoning us with our TV. They're poisoning us with the internet, TikTok, all the bullshit that, like you said, look the other way while we're screwing you over here. And how are they screwing us? They're just imprisoning us in this worker-like atmosphere. You, myself, everyone else, I know they're not happy all the time because happiness, it's hard when you're grinding and you're worrying about your next meal or where your money's going to come from or what your kids are going to do. You shouldn't have to worry about any of that stuff. When you're born into this world and you're part of the earth, we should all help each other and lift each other up as one, as humanity, bring us to the next level of enlightenment. I mean, I just think we're doing it all wrong. And like you said, we need a giant reset. I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean, maybe I think that there's flood. Flood would work. I think that considering all that you immediately come to a dead stop of like, what are we collectively going to do? I don't think that there is an answer for that. And so I think it is turning internally and it is taking a level of autonomous just authority within yourself, the self-responsibility. And because, I mean, I think that a big part of the system that was created, like you said, the division of this team and that team, is to then be able to be a victim of when your team doesn't win. You get to blame the other team. Now, when your team wins, we had it right all along, and now fuck those other people over there. And so I think you, to a certain degree, the level of like apoliticalness of like, I'm not getting into this sport. I'm not getting into the sport of politics because it's all, they say left wing, right wing are two wings of the same bird. And so to get riled up about any of this shit is then giving into the system, is then saying, I like the system you design. I'm going to adhere to it, and fuck that. I don't like that shit. Flags on the flagpole and saying who you like and doing all this fucking shit is bull. It's bullshit.
Are you talking about on a political level?
Yeah, completely on a political level. I mean, I think I think politics is sports for people who don't like sports. It's the same exact thing. And I know that's being like really, really cynical. And I know that there's like people that believe wholeheartedly that policies can change and that changes. Like I just got my ballot, like the mail-in ballot, and I'm looking at it like, well, first of all, I'm not educated enough. I think I personally should have to pass a test to be the one who gets to decide these measures and these things on the ballot, where I'm like, I don't know enough of this. Like, why are you giving me this choice? Like, I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff. And so to think that first of all, that we should even have that decision making. And then second of all, to the most cynical degree, I just think that the powers that be just would not let us have that power. Like, why
of course.
You're going to go ask the people what they think? We know what we want. We want more money. We want more control. And I don't know. I don't think
it's. If you want a good take on that, listen to George Carlton. Am I saying his name right? The comedian?
I think that's fine, George Carlton.
Okay, I always is it right? Carlin.
Yeah. So for those of you who are just meeting Ryan for the first time, you're in for an amazing journey of getting people's names just slightly wrong. I think I didn't call you out on it. I think you said like Zuckerberg earlier. It's close enough.
So
George Carlin.
George Carlin. You can look him up. He does a great bit, and it's long, and it's about the illusion of choice, and how he says that the powers that be give us an illusion of choice just to keep us at bay. You know, you can choose A or B, and you feel like you're making a difference. You feel like you're making a choice. In reality, they already have the choice made for you. It's the illusion that you're making a difference, and I think that applies to everywhere. It's like, not to be mean, but when I go to Walmart and they have the nerve to go, "Do you want to round up your change to make a wish?" I look them dead in the eyes and I go, "No," because you're a $1 billion corporation. You can end world hunger tomorrow. You're asking me, who's shopping at Walmart, and I need to shop there because I can't afford to shop elsewhere, and then you're going to ask me to take my hard-earned money to help a charity that you could solve tomorrow. I mean, the Walton family are billionaires. It's just, I find it like unnerving that they have the audacity to ask us for that. I have no idea why I even brought that up.
Well, I think it's the idea that we're given any of responsibility that I don't think we deserve to take on. I think it's just, again, we'll go back to the hard reset so many times, because I think that in systems that were established a very, very long time ago with control in mind, and then releasing it to the population and saying, like, we're in control, but we're going to give you this illusion. I don't know where there's probably some amazing analysis of that, because I see that too at the grocery store. It's like, do you want to end world hunger? Like, do I just hit this button and do that? Is that all it takes? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there's got to be either some tax advantage. Again, follow the money. It's something that they get to benefit from, or on a much more deeper conspiratorial level, maybe because we both read that and look at that and go like, oh God, right, there's people starving. Oh God, and then trickle down into some emotional quality. I don't know if it goes that deep, but who knows? Like, everything has a purpose. Nothing is done by accident, and nothing is done without some level of intention. And this just reminded me, kind of a little stray thought, but I remember during COVID, which I think kind of overlapped a little bit maybe with the Ukraine thing, the Russia-Ukraine thing. Yeah. And I remember for a little while you were getting a little bit into that. And I like to see, you're kind of this like litmus test for me to see, all right, where am I not looking? Like, where am I not questioning things, where I'm taking things wholesale? And in terms of like when COVID was happening, I was very much in the like, I don't know what's happening. I'm a little bit scared. I'm going to go with the narrative. In hindsight, now the next COVID to come around, I'll be a bit more critical and not jump to just thinking that I'm going to do whatever the CDC or the government says. And then the same thing with Russia, Ukraine, that was more just like, man, I can't afford mentally, spiritually, emotionally to give a shit about what is going on outside of my cul-de-sac, my town, and to a much less degree to my state and to my country. But the idea of like us as civilians, as Americans, getting incited by some international conflict is also by design. Is we Americans are the warriors and the defenders of freedom and justice and democracy. And like, do we all feel good about that? Like, I don't feel good about sticking up for another country when no one's sticking up for us here. It's just so, that shit is wild. But anyway, I want to get into the little conspiracy side of it. Ooh, you were posting a lot of, I know. I'm wearing a sleeping bag, for crying out loud, dude. Feel free to strip out of that at any point. I'm sure you remember this, but the blue and yellow of the Ukrainian flag, and then the blue and yellow branding of I don't know. There was some weird, like, I was like, whoa, this is some deep shit for sure. Like, it was getting into like it was it blew my mind. These people that are literally having Ukrainian flags outside their house. They don't have American flags at any time, but the Ukrainian flags out there. They don't even know how to spell Ukraine. Like, it's ridiculous. It's this tribal mentality because their political party said we have to stick up for these people who they don't know. They don't even, they did a street interview, I think, and the one guy was asking people that were supporting Ukraine, where they were wearing a shirt or had a flag at that time. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on? Not one person knew what was going on. They just said it was the right thing to do. They deserve the money. They're being blown up over there. I don't think anybody knew what was going on. And like you said, I think there's more than meets the eye. But bringing it back to that point, I just don't understand when you look at the astronomical amount of money that we spend on military, budgeting, NASA, and then we're sending it overseas to these countries in the billions per day. But our help people within our veterans are dying. People are sleeping on the streets in America. We should be the most richest
country with the best things for our own citizens. We should all be living like kings and queens. I mean, we have the money to do it if we insulate ourselves and just defend ourselves from the borders. Why are we, putting I think it all has to do with, I personally think the system's crumbling right before our eyes. I think money's dying. I think the American dollar is going to come to an end, and that's when chaos is going to begin. I just think it's, people are already trying to get away from the dollar. I think the Saudis got away from the dollar. I think they're going to the gold. They're going to gold. I mean, just like what's his face did, like we talked about last time, Gaddafi. And I think a lot of these countries are getting tired of the control they're under through the petrodollar. And once that happens, once the American dollar is not accepted on the world market and it crumbles, that's it. That's the end of times for us. I mean, that's what I think is going to happen. I think these systems we have in place can only sustain themselves for so long. Whether it's the healthcare system, that could potentially collapse. I think all the systems we have going on are on the verge of collapse. That's just me from what I see.
I agree. I mean, it doesn't spark inspiration. It sparks like a fear mentality, because it doesn't motivate me to say, well, I mean, I guess maybe it would potentially motivate to come back to like the idea of what you can control. So you can control yourself first and foremost. You can stay grounded and calm and peaceful, and then that spreads out. But then, locally, you can do things. And I know you're involved pretty heavily into local affairs, and you pay attention to what goes on in your town, and there you have affected change, even if it's on a small level. Like, you've done things that have made a difference, made an impact. I remember when there was potholes in your neighborhood, and you were driving a Cadillac, and you were not having that. You were not having those potholes in the Cadillac, wrecking the Caddy, and you took charge. I don't remember what you did, but I'm sure it was strong and willful, and did with intention, because you have a lens on bureaucracy that I think a lot of us don't, where you see the level of, like, maybe corruption's too strong of a word. If corruption, not, then just complacency. Incompetence. That's perfect. Yeah, exactly. Like, right. So there are people who are running the show who are way out of their league and make decisions and make things that affect people. And so I guess what I'm saying is that there is still, like, just imagining a grand scenario where the whole system crumbles, and tomorrow I wake up and the money doesn't work. I got to go across the street. Dude, across the street, I see his garage open right now. He's got a ton of tools. He's very adept. And so we're going to have to start to talk to our neighbors and say, like, man, COVID was like a little bit of a glimpse to that, where there was some people helping I think it was under false pretenses and things like that. But at least it showed, I hope, this is just my hopeful stance of, like, I hope that we could manage something in the face of some catastrophe like that, of just money not working anymore. Because
I hope so too. I got to tell you a funny story though, based on that. So what you were talking about, like our neighbors looking out for each other and whatnot. I had lived in the kind of a country / suburbanous area. It was like a country road, and we were outside during COVID at the peak of it, and this was when, like, the governor at the time put orders that we shouldn't congregate or gather in small groups, and stay isolated, and blah blah blah. So we were all outside, standing 6 feet away from each other, standing in my front yard, and we were all having this speech, like you said, like, people were scared. Is this it? Is it going to be Armageddon? Are people going to be stealing from each other? Blah blah blah. So we were talking to each other, and we're like, well, we got to stick together as a neighborhood, and they're all looking at me because I'm the younger one. There was a lot of older people in our neighborhood, and I was like, yeah, you're right. If we all stick together, if something goes wrong, Joe next door, he's a hunter. He's got guns, and he can hunt for food. And Rich across the street, his wife's a nurse. She can take care of us medically. So anyways, we had this great plan. And then, like, a couple days went by, and I had mats in my basement. I had a couple guys over from the gym because they closed all the gyms, and we wanted to train jiu-jitsu. So I had about 4 or 5 guys over there. All of a sudden, the police come over and knock on the door. Joe next door called the cops on me because he said I had too many people. This is the guy that was supposed to be helping me. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it was one of these things where it was, in the time when it meant the most, you can't really trust people. You can only trust your family and your really close friends, because your neighbors will turn on you too. I mean, it's just human nature.
Yeah, I mean, just because you live next to somebody doesn't imply that you're in the same community as them. I mean, you can...
No, but... Yeah, but your word is bond.
Not for Joe, it isn't.
No, that's true. That's true.
Sold you
But,
out. Yeah, but I mean, I think that speaks again to the nature of how deeply embedded we are in the program and trusting that the cops would be the ones to call. And that's like some tattletale, like young kid shit where you're like, you're telling a grown up, like, Joe couldn't come over and face you and be like, hey guys, I love you. I want the best for you. I think that this is unhealthy, whatever. You call the cops and the cops are going to come in and do something like that. That's some bitch shit.
Yeah. But those were the times we were living in where people were fearful of everything at the time. And, that, like you said, when you can't think and take charge for yourself and your family, you turn to those that you entrust to do that job for you, that are in uniform. But those aren't always, we're all humans. And some of those people are inept or incompetent and shouldn't be in those positions. So it's
100%,
like,
yeah.
I mean, how many of our politicians or our leaders have been embroiled in some sort of criminal activity or whatever it is? Yeah, all of them. All of them. You're right.
Yeah.
And these are the
I
people
don't
every
know how
day
I would
that
be tested of given a level of power and influence and money. And again, always following the money and the idea that our government, and the question you asked is like, why don't we help, or why don't we help ourselves? Because other people are helping themselves. And so the idea of helping someone less fortunate doesn't feel good, or doesn't feel like the spiritual, or you don't even have a connection to spiritualism when you're getting all the material needs met for you by huge lobbying, as a senator, getting someone, you walk out. I mean, the idea, I was thinking about the term lobbying recently, and I'm pretty sure I haven't looked it up, but would make the most sense that at some point in history, when maybe I don't know if it ever was, the government was like honest and the senators were unbiased and they made decisions that were for the best of the country or for their constituents. And then they go out into the lobby and there's literally someone out there, a big fat cat with a big cigar. And he's like, hey, I'll give you $1 million if you do this thing. And then you go, oh, of course I'll take $1 million. And now that is been exposed, it's like, not lobbying isn't a secret. No one's like that's clear. That's how our system runs, is lobbying. And so it's anybody with more resources to say, I will give you some of my resources if you make the decision that benefits me, and in that'll benefit you. And no one at any point is saying, well, how would that benefit the people? Fuck the people. Like, I want what's best for me. It's just all ego. It's all that, how could you turn away something when it means you're not going to get $1 million for nothing? It's corruption from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, it's just people are selfish, and they, you follow two paths: the money, and that money usually leads to hurting people.
Yeah.
I mean,
somebody has to get exploited for anyone to gain anything. There is no purity in this.
Yeah, don't you think we should be living to like 300? I mean, dude, all the medical advances, and we're still dying at an early age. Men barely make it to men don't make it to 100. What do they make it to 70 at the best? I mean, maybe 80. Why shouldn't we be living to like 200 years old? I don't think that that's the best thing for us to be living a longer life. It should be living a more fulfilled life in the time that we have. And I think that's a big problem. It's not as if like men are getting to 70 and being like, I want another 230 years. I just didn't get enough to do all the things I wanted to do. I think that we could do better in the 80s, 70s that we have. But to your point, it's by design that it's keeping people sick, keeping people a little bit unnerved and disgruntled and angry, and that like just eats you up on the inside. And just like in back in New York where you're at, there's the largest cancer research center at Roswell in Buffalo. And that, like, I remember when the campus got built, like it is like several city blocks of like research and development, and that's never going to go away. There's never going to be a day where we go, we did it, solved it. Now all this medical space is useless. It's just this like, war is peace is something George Orwell said in 1984. Is like, you have to have a conflict. You have to be fighting something. You have to have an enemy. You have to have something to be against. And back to like the Ukraine-Russia thing, Russia's always been our enemy. And so it was easy. That's the easiest narrative, to just be like, that country that we've never liked and has always been against us, yes, of course they're the enemy. Of course I'll fly a flag of some, downtrodden country that's being taken over, because that's the easiest thing, because it's back to just like, I want to be on a team, and I want to feel like I belong. And it's just fucked up. I want to be righteous, and I want to be, do the right thing and show my concern and donate money and wave a flag. All this, it's like the sending thoughts and prayers. It does nothing. What do thoughts and prayers do? You're just writing thoughts and prayers. But I wanted to bring it back. You don't think they have a cure for cancer?
I think it's more about there is a life that you can live that doesn't cause cancer. I don't know. I'm sure there is.
That's a good one.
I'll say yeah. There's probably a cure, but it's also like it is. It starts at the stasis of your body that it would allow for cancer to come in, and so I don't even know if it matters so much that like you got cancer and then I don't know. Yeah, I say there's a cure for cancer. Yeah, for sure. It's just that's a tough one because I do, and it might sound harsh, but I do believe that there's a significant amount of people who get cancer not genetically or just by some luck of DNA, is that they lived a life that then the body was just like causing cancerous cells. I think there's a big part of that.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right about that. But I know people that have lived a life that's terrible and they don't get cancer. And then there's people that are marathon runners that get cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, I also agree with what you're saying. I think it's your lifestyle and things that come into play that can accelerate some things. But I think it's the luck of the draw. I mean, if you're a healthy man and you beat everything else, you're in shape, you're going to die of cancer. That's what's going to get you. I mean, if you avoid getting hit by a car, all the other variables, and you just live in your house and you're healthy, you're juicing every day, meaning like fruit juice, and you're eating a vegan lifestyle, whatever you believe is healthy, you're running, you're staying fit, you're going to die of cancer. Yeah. That's what's going to get you in the end.
That speaks more to a societal, systemic situation, because if it doesn't have anything to do with living a healthy lifestyle and you're going to get cancer, then that would point to outward scenarios of let's say 5G and GMOs and all these things that are out of our control for the most part. We're just inundated with cancer-causing things by just simply living on this planet. And so I think, again, that's a hard reset type situation, because to say, even if you traced it back far enough and say that like more people are predisposed to cancer because it's in their family history. Okay, we'll keep going back. When did it start in a family history that would have been passed into a DNA thing? Like, it has to have a genesis point at some point. So I don't know. I'm sure you could probably track the data of like when we started chemtrailing, or when we started spraying pesticides, and when we started putting GMOs and bingo. Bing bong. Let's talk about chemtrails, because I joked about that because I'm still on the fence, because I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe that that's true. But
it absolutely is true. It absolutely is true. What do you mean you don't believe it? Come on, it's 2024. You don't think they're spraying shit in the sky?
For what?
What do you mean
to make
for
people
what?
Sick.
For possibly various purposes. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the reasoning. I mean, they could be multitude of reasonings. Weather control, maybe they're spraying aluminum up there and it's a byproduct that's making us sick. Maybe they're doing it for a different purpose. I mean, we know that weather control, the government can manipulate weather. I mean, that's a fact. That's not conspiratorial. They do it over in Saudi Arabia. They make rain clouds. They make it rain. They do it in other countries. So if they can do it there, don't think they're not going to weaponize the weather. I mean, HAARP is known to do that. HAARP over there, I think it's in Washington State. It's like this giant array of antenna. You ever hear about HAARP? H-A-A-R-P. But, they claim there's something else, but a lot of people believe they're controlling the weather, and that we have the ability to do that through frequency and vibration, which has already been proven. But chemtrails, maybe there are some, again, you can YouTube it. It's probably going to be hard to find, but there are some videos that show planes that open up the back end, and they have these units back there that are spraying some sort of substance for the military. Again, I don't know. Have you ever seen a video? It's really wild. It goes back, I think, to World War II. They had this. It was like a smoke wall they would use out in the ocean. So if battleships were lined up and facing each other, in order to blind them, they would have a plane fly in between the opposing countries and literally drop, and I don't know what substance it was, but it would create this wall of smoke that would stay in the air for hours upon hours, that would block their vision. It was really wild to see. They have a videotape of it. I couldn't believe it was real. It looks like this giant vertical cloud that's hundreds of feet in the air blocking the battleships. But my point being is there's all sorts of substances they're spraying, and you can generally tell the difference between a chemtrail and a contrail, which people ever say, it's contrails from a plane. Contrail is water vapor. We all know that. A contrail is going to dissipate in 30 seconds to a minute. If you watch it up in the sky, you're going to see it dissipate. A chemtrail is going to expand, and it's going to stay up there for hours. I took a video on my Instagram Instagram not too long ago of a chemtrail right in my backyard. 100% it was a chemtrail. This thing just sat there and expanded. It looked like a very, very weird cloud, and it stayed up there for hours. And who knows what it's doing up there? Maybe it's blocking sunlight. Maybe they're, you know, you ever hear the, speaking of chemtrails, it's real funny going back to, I don't know, the 70s. Prince was interviewed, the singer, rest in peace, you know. And he believed himself, this is before conspiracies were even a thing. This is before the internet. He was interviewed by some radio host. Again, you can YouTube the interview. And he talks about the government spraying his neighborhood. And he, you know, in his real feminine voice, he's like, they're spraying the neighborhood. And I know it's happening because whenever I see these clouds, people start fighting. People start getting angry, and they start fighting in the neighborhood. Before that, everyone's peaceful. So he believed that it was changing people's emotions, that they was creating chaos within his own neighborhood. That's just a small tangent off of chemtrails. But yeah, what the purpose is, maybe they're experimenting on us. Maybe they're, you know, maybe they're spraying some sort of COVID on us. I mean, that's crazy, but who knows? But there's definitely something going up in the skies. I mean, just look up. Everyone's looking down at their phone all the time. Start looking up. Maybe you'll see an anomaly or catch something on your phone. I mean, I posted some videos recently of these weird clouds that it almost looked like a triangle-shaped object that looked like a cloud moving, but it was almost like, you know, when the predator turns invisible and you could just catch a faint outline, but he blends in with the surrounding forest. It looked like that. It looked like there was maybe cameras projecting the sky behind it onto the bottom of it, because the cloud formation, you can just vaguely make out a huge triangle, and it was moving along with the other clouds, but it was really weird to see. And again, I know what you could say. Those things can be faked and, you know, AI, but usually when something, in my opinion, is shot with multiple phones in multiple directions from multiple different people, I put some validity behind it. You know, if it's a singular video, I don't know if you saw the recent Bigfoot video that went viral. It went on Yahoo. It made it all up to mainstream news. A guy claimed he saw a Bigfoot sitting on a tree eating a branch. And the video is pretty clear. It's pretty clear. It's a recent one. It's one of the more recent ones. And it's video clear. But the internet sleuths got involved. They freeze-framed every single frame. They broke the video down, and they discovered it was a suit. It was a Sasquatch Slim Jim suit. The Sasquatch. And he had, somebody must have purchased it and filmed the video. So you do have to be careful. But I think there are ways to validate or put more validity to certain videos than others. But you're always going to have that question unless you see it with your own eyes. Yeah, and even then it may be fake.
Yeah, that's true. Believe none of what you see and half of what you hear is the old adage. But I think just the thing that always kind of makes me feel like in disbelief of certain aspects of these kind of more popular ideas of things like chemtrails or anything that the government is doing. I can't help but think of the human element behind the pilot who goes to work every day and sprays the sky. Like that's a guy or a woman who has to do that and come home and how was work today? It was good. Yeah, just flew over and sprayed some COVID. What's for dinner?
Yeah, but how do you? But yeah, again though, you know, so when you're in the military, you follow orders. You don't ask questions, you know, and you're not given all the details. I mean, those are designed for higher-ranking people, and if you're ever in the military, you'd understand the way it works. It's just you take the orders and you do as you say. You don't ask questions, and that's exactly what you do. If the pilot's told to go up there and hit that button at 30,000 feet and fly 7 miles across this town, that's what he's going to do. And if they can either tell him two things. You don't have the clearance to ask questions, and it's above your pay grade. You're doing your American civic duty. It's the same thing with the astronauts, with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Well, what do you mean? These guys lied about it? Yeah. They told them we're going to kill your families. We're going to, you know, you don't think that's possible?
Oh,
you shut your mouth. Or they guilt them with American pride. You are doing your civic duty as an American. You are winning the Cold War for us. You are doing an honor to all Americans, but you must keep this secret because it'll destroy America if you tell the truth. Or we kill your whole family. But
that's fair.
I mean, you know what I mean? So when you say the pilot goes up there, it's really easy to send them up there and say hit the button and then come back down and report for duty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Well, I think that speaks to just the idea of how much indoctrination comes from a patriotic sense, and just the idea, even just this conversation we're having, and I don't think people who would be really contrary to these opinions would even listen to this. But I often wonder when you could find, Joe Blow six pack who just stars and stripes and just is so just into it, would never want to question any of that, because that questions just this idea of America being this place of the land and the free. And just like you've said, the indoctrination from an early age, like the fact that we used to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance every day.
Crazy.
Pledge your allegiance. That shit is so wild. And whose idea that was to say, like, get kids to do that. Get kids to pledge their allegiance to this country. And that's how you have a military. That's how you have people who would eventually get to a place of like, yeah, I want to continue to pledge my allegiance and do that, whatever you say. Yeah.
Yeah. It's bananas. I mean, just the military in itself. I believe in defense, but when you're actively going places and killing people, like, I don't know, and still murder in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
Do they separate that because you're killing a bad guy? It's still murder. It's the same thing with the death penalty. I don't know how I feel about that. It's like, technically the guy raped and killed your whole family. I'd probably want him dead too, but is that my call?
Right.
I don't know. That's a serious thing, taking a life. It just happened to you and your family. Do you want to put that on someone else? I don't know. That's a really difficult question. So, like war and military and all that, it's difficult what the right answer is on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just to kind of joke about the idea of like, would God sort out the ones who we killed? And I think that again is within the propaganda in the back of the dollar bill. In God we trust. I think that there's people who believe that we have a God, we have an American God, like we have our own God here. Like he will he'll turn a blind eye to these things that we're doing in other places because we're doing them for the service of God and country. And the two things that, are infallible. There's no question of morality when you say this is our God and this is our country and whatever it takes. And just that level of like choosing to not believe or to not question these things that we're questioning on this show, where it would be just no, because the whole thing crumbles if you even poke at it a little bit. It's just no, my God, my country. It's done. We're not talking about this, and it gets people pretty riled up when you talk about it. I think it's kind of funny sometimes.
What, to get people riled up?
Just in the idea of like questioning their faith or questioning their allegiance in anything. I see in this town there's guys who drive like huge fucking trucks with big American flags in the back, and there's a guy who literally has like a decal on the back of his pickup truck with the Pledge of Allegiance on it. At what point was he like, I pledge my allegiance so firmly I want to put this on the back of my F-250? Like there are those people. Like that is what kind of keeps this narrative going, because there are still people who will not go away from that's the right thing to do.
Well, do you think that's not so much quote unquote the right thing, but just a passion? Don't you think everybody has their own passion? That guy's passion is his allegiance to his country. The guy next to him's passion is the Buffalo Bills. This guy's passion is karate. This guy's passion is movies. Everybody has their niche, and they dive wholeheartedly into it. Some guys like landscaping, some guys like woodworking, and that becomes their world. That becomes their distraction. That becomes everything. When they have time off, they focus on woodworking or whatever it may be. Maybe this guy is just, it's a tribal mentality. He hangs out with like-minded individuals that believe whatever they believe, and he wants to put it loud and proud. I mean, there's people in my town that have their whole cars bumper stickered with religious things, seek God and John 3:16, and and there's people that stand out in the corner of Tops. Remember, they used to scream with their signs, and the devil will find you. And so people have their own thing. It's who am I to judge? Some people probably think that I'm weird in my beliefs, but I think everybody needs something to focus on, or we'll all go crazy. I
agree, but I also take issue with your allegiance to something that we could, I think, objectively argue is not good. And I know that that's just to the point of saying that what I believe is right and what you believe is wrong. But the idea of allegiance to an institution that has had a pretty storied history of exploitation and slavery and just all these things. So I think the guy who's passionate with woodworking is better than the guy who's passionate with Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry. It's
fine. I mean, you basically need anarchy, and I don't mean destroying buildings and things of that nature, but you need to defy all authority figures to start over, to have, the place where we're talking about, where we don't have an allegiance to a single entity, or an ideology. You know, it's to each other. It's to humanity.
Yeah.
That's what it should be about, lifting each other up. But we just have all these things in the way.
I know. I think about the just the idea of saying no to things that come up. Like I don't mean to call you out here, but I remember when you came out to visit and we went to the Griffith Observatory, and you had the only way you could get into the Griffith Observatory was to prove that you've been vaccinated. And I had been vaccinated, not something I'm proud of, but I had my card.
Pure blood.
And I could belong to the group. And we got it, you didn't go up and be like, no, and I'm just going in anyway. We kind of, we shirked the system a bit and we got around it. But just the idea of having a society or just finding ways to say no. And I think COVID was such an amazing opportunity for people to say no to the authority and to say, no, I'm not doing that. And I don't think that it really caused that much detriment in the whole, where, the propaganda that was like, well, you're killing people's grandmas. And if you say no, or if you don't do this thing that we're saying you're doing, you're hurting your community, where I think that kind of largely got proved to be untrue. And so I think that there's opportunities in our daily life to just say, no, thank you. I'm not doing that.
Well, they tried hard. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to put the vaccine in the meat, which they're doing already.
Yeah, but what is the purpose of that? Just because you believe that the vaccine gets people. Go ahead. Tell me.
No, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it did, because I think that the vaccine was driven largely, again, financially. It's just like, let's just get people to buy this thing, or get governments to buy this thing that's going to benefit the bottom line of a company. And I don't know, and I'm sure you could tell me, but what the ultimate goal of vaccinating people was, like getting the vaccine into the body. What's that now done, or what that's going to do? And I'm sure there's probably speculation around that.
I don't know, but I just I have some theories of my own. But I also, they rolled that thing out so fast. It wasn't based on a traditional vaccine per se, where you get the flu, you put a little bit of the flu in the body, and then the flu creates antibodies, and your immune system fights off the actual flu. That's not what the COVID vaccine was, and I could be wrong. Was it mRNA? Vaccine, do you remember the term they used? Am I saying that right? Did I say that right?
Yeah, close enough.
With the spike protein and all that nonsense, and they rolled out the vaccine in 9 months because there was so much pressure to get it out. Well, what was in it? They never really talked about it. I mean, they really never told us. And then all the, I always say, like, if there was a real scamdemic, I'm going to call it, and bodies were hitting the floor, you would not need to incentivize an inoculation. People would be knocking down the hospital doors to get that. If it was truly a pandemic where you were walking down the street and they were like, blistering people dying, you wouldn't be giving away cheeseburgers and guns and vacations, and the one dude from New York eating fries and going, you mean you get fries after you get vaccinated? Are you kidding me? And people were lining up for that. I know people that did it because they wanted to go see a football game. Well, I'm not going to stop seeing my favorite team. I can't get into the stadium if I'm not vaccinated. We're talking about your health. And you're deciding football trumps your health? You don't even know what's in that. You're just lining up and some dude's injecting something in you, and you're like, oh, good to go. I got my football tickets. Yeah. That, to me, was insane. Yeah. I needed more answers. It was too much. When they were incentivizing it and pushing it on everybody, why were they that right there should have been the biggest red flag. It's like if somebody comes up to you and goes, hey, man, sniff this. And you're like, I'm not sniffing that. I don't know what's in there. Come on, man, sniff it. I'm telling you, it's good for you. Just sniff it. I don't want that. I'll give you a cheeseburger. All right, give it to me. That's essentially what people were doing. And then on top of that, do you remember when they go, one and done, baby. Just get the vaccine. You'll save yourself and your neighbor. Then 6 months later, it's like, oh, you know what? You need a booster. Why don't you come back and get on? Well, what were they putting in that time? And then you need a second booster. And you know what? Now you're going to need a booster every year. Mm-hmm. It got to the point of insanity. I was getting scared about that. Like, I thought I was going to lose my job at one time. I held out to the last week. It was me and another guy, and they were threatening us every day. You're on the chopping block. Next week, if you don't get vaccinated, they're going to cut you loose. I said, well, fine. I'm just going to find something else. And thank God it worked out, and something happened where the state changed their mind, and there was no mandatory vaccine implemented. I didn't have to get it. So I am a pureblood, but. And my blood donations are worth more, by the way, and also, and so is my semen. Women want pure blood semen. They don't want vaccinated semen, because then you go back to what's in it. Well, there were some early, theories and some tests done, and You know, some people think Morgellons was in there. Have you ever heard of Morgellons disease, where people find fibers in their arms, blue and red fibers, that you should look into that one. It's wild. It's a wild one, and there's a lot of evidence behind it where people get these feelings and and there's videos on it where they're taking tweezers and they're randomly pulling out these long blue and red strings out of their arms and legs and stuff. They can't attribute it to anything. The other theory is graphene. They found graphene in it. Graphene could be nanobots. I mean, with Bill Gates, who knows what he's doing? He experiments openly over in these African countries with vaccines. Yeah. He's admitted to it on babies. That's where they go test these things because they don't get approval ratings in the United States. They can't test these vaccines as soon as they want to. Go over to Africa and give them a little bit of money. These villages, we'll give you our arms to our youth. Go ahead, put whatever you want in it. Well, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. So what's to say Bill Gates is not experimenting on us, or these companies are? The point being is they rolled it out so fast and nobody knew it was in it, and everyone lined up for it because we believed what they were saying. And then now here we are, and it was all fake. The masks, the social distancing, the actual disease, or it was all fake.
Yeah.
And so it's like, at what point do you stop believing them altogether? And then what was in it? I would want to know what's in it. I mean, they call it the clot shot. I mean, there's montages on YouTube you can type in immediately after this thing, and people were lining up, and these celebrities and athletes were saying, get your shot, get boosted. They were dropping like flies. Remember that comedian joked about the vaccine? She passed out on stage. You had basketball players, football players getting heart conditions when they shouldn't. LeBron James' son had a heart condition based on the vaccine. They won't admit to it, but that's definitely what caused it. So why has cardiac arrest gone through the roof after the vaccination? That's like, look into it.
Look it up. Well, then I don't like that one because I had the vaccine and I'm clotting like a motherfucker, and I just don't like that I made that choice, and I feel a little bit I feel very regretful. I mean, fortunately, I don't have anything that I could point to and saying that that's the reason why, but yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly that it was uninformed, and like the idea that it was done with such level of pressure, and not even just the pressure coming from the powers that be, and then that trickling down into like social pressure and ostracization and all these things that ultimately is the way that they keep us controlled, is to say like you're going to be ostracized from your community, and you're going to be seen as a heretic, and all these things that just suck. That sucks really bad. And
I wouldn't worry about the first one. My personal theory is they needed the boosters to do whatever they're doing, to add to it. Maybe they're tracking us. I know that's crazy. Maybe they're putting nanobots in it. I think that technology exists, and that's a way to get. There's got to be a reason why they were pushing it. Why would they care? Why would they care? My whole thing is, okay, they were saying, if you don't take this, you're going to die. Well, then let us die. And then that's one less dumb person on the earth. If they don't want to take the medication to save them and their families, let them die. Why do they care? Is it because it's one less taxpayer? I
think, if you say it is a financial gain, then it's because that's one less person that we get to pay for the vaccine. That money goes into, Merck or whatever company is selling it. So I think, again, to say that it's less about what the vaccine was going to do in terms of maybe potentially controlling us or making us sick. It's more just about like, let's just make money, and maybe it did nothing. Maybe it did nothing at all. And so I'm saying that because it makes me feel more comfortable. I'm like, I'd rather a company profit and not do something that was intentionally caused to harm me in some way.
Yeah, I always think never let a good crisis go to waste. That's a famous expression. I think they used it to introduce something else. Something was going on there. I don't know what it is, but there was something going on there. They were pushing it so hard. It was almost like they were forcing you at one point. But why? Money? Is that what you're saying? Like just everybody get it?
Always use the most simple explanation for it. Yeah, it's just people are the ones who are pushing are also getting a kickback, and so they have celebrities or athletes or politicians pushing something is because they get a little kickback for it. So anyway, that's a tough one, and I don't know that we'll ever be able to have the answers in our lifetime. But I think next time that comes around, I'll be a bit more weary and just discretionary around that shit. But man, that's a tough one.
Especially when it comes to injecting something into your body. Your body, your choice. You should really think about it, and you can say no.
Yeah.
You don't have to comply. I mean, I would want some evidence.
I just really wanted that cheeseburger, though. All right, listen, that's an hour and a half. That's a solid episode. Thank you all for joining us. I'm sure you'll have a lot to walk away and think about and talk to your friends about and tell them to listen to this show, and we'll keep going. We're going to do this, I think, twice a month, and we'll just keep exposing the truth, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. One lie at a time.
Look it up. Bye.